Hey there, Uplifters. Welcome to another episode where we explore the journeys of remarkable women who find strength, wisdom, and yes, even joy in life's inevitable transitions. I had the funniest conversation the other day with a friend as I was remarking on my entree into my 50s recently. And she said, "Well, just so you know, honey, the most important thing I learned was what was once wet is dry, and what was once dry is wet." That didn't sound terribly appealing. But then she went on to say, but it's also where I truly found my power and where I most became myself. That conversation really stuck with me because it highlights something fascinating that researchers at Harvard have recently discovered, that the midlife brain undergoes significant rewiring that actually enhances creative thinking and problem solving abilities. So while we've long focused on the physical symptoms of menopause, science is revealing that what appears as brain fog might actually be our minds shifting from reactive, detail oriented thinking to more integrated, big picture wisdom. Today's guest knows all about finding unexpected gifts in life's transitions. Julie Gordon White, the CEO and founder of MenoWell, created an entirely new business at 55 years old, precisely when conventional wisdom might suggest playing it safe. When her own menopause journey began with severe brain fog and hot flashes, rather than simply enduring it, she got curious. And that curiosity led her to develop practical solutions, not just for herself, but for women everywhere navigating this frankly underserved experience. Julie's story reminds us that our greatest challenges often contain the seeds of our most meaningful contributions to this life. So, whether you're in menopause, considering a career change, or facing any significant life transition, this conversation offers real wisdom about embracing change, about staying curious, and finding the positive in every outcome. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, and join us for a candid conversation about reframing life's transitions from something we dread into something that actually makes us more powerful, more creative, and more authentically and fully ourselves. Julie Gordon White, CEO and founder of MenoWell. So you were nominated for the show by the wonderful Denise Pines from episode 37 of the Uplifters podcast. I mean, she's such a rock star. I'm amazed at all
Force
that
of
she's doing.
nature. Yes.
Force of nature. I think I spent half of the episode introducing her because she does so much. I was like, we need an hour-long episode for this one so we can have 30 minutes of introduction. I introduced you in what I thought was a pretty compelling way. She said she nominated you because you find the positives in all outcomes. I feel like there's a story there, Julie.
We've known each other for about 4 years now, but we're very close, like sisters from another mother. And a guy friend of ours saw that I'd started a menopause company. And he said, "Oh my gosh, my other friend has a menopause company. You two should meet." And it was just sort of love at first sight after that. So, and we've been sharing hotel rooms, exhibit tables, all kinds of things ever since.
My goodness, that's beautiful. I feel like for me, all of these topics about menopause are such a gift because my my grandmother and my great grandmother, even my mother, grew up in an era where that was not a conversation. My grandma talks about when she
Zero.
started her period, you would just like find the magical pad fairy had landed on the back of your commode and never was a word spoken. You just had to sort of look at this thing and figure out how to use it to manage the blood. I feel like it's such a gift for me, having just turned 50 last week, to have all of these conversations front and center from women who have lived this and said, this was my experience. I want it to be better for the next generation of women.
It's important that you have that because, like we said, our moms, our grandmothers, they didn't talk about it. They just soldiered on. They barely
Mm,
told us about periods. So
right.
we're kind of left to our own struggles. And Gen X women are like, we're not going to struggle by ourselves anymore. So somebody's going to talk about this. Someone is going to help me. And so
Yeah.
they really pushed this conversation forward, which I'm so grateful.
Now that I think about it, so a couple of weeks ago, our episode was on shame, and it was about the many shames we hide and the cost of shame in our society, and how the only way to feel a greater sense of connection and intimacy with other human beings is to share our shames. And I
Mhm.
feel like that is so much a part of the work that you all are doing. It's valuable, insightful, wise work from lived experience, while at the same time, it's saying, we're pulling this out of the closet.
Yeah, yeah. But isn't it interesting how we put menopause, a normal life stage, in the shame bucket? Like, how did it
Yeah.
even get in there in the first place? It's how little girls feel about starting their periods. I remember talking to my daughter, and she had a little period pack. So there was no need for a magical fairy to come and drop off what she needed. She was prepared. Even though we had this whole conversation, she started her period, but she didn't tell me because somewhere in her mind, she was embarrassed. She had shame around this amazing normal experience. And so, fast forward, women 40 years later are doing the same thing. Like, how do we even get there?
Yeah. And what was that bridge like for you? Did you feel like you had shame around the symptoms of menopause or even the label of menopause when it started for you?
Shame is not really an emotion that I hang out in very much. There's some things that, like, man, I wish I didn't do that, but in general, I was scared. I was more on the scared
Mm,
side of things because my first experience symptoms at 46 were around extreme brain fog. And I was worried that I was having early onset dementia because I could not keep sentences together, my emails, I couldn't type anything. I had to read them 5 times and then send it. And then there were still typos after that. Like, what? Why is my brain not working? So I had worry and
mm,
fear first. And then came the hot flashes and night sweats. I'm like, oh, okay. Also, my mom had hysterectomy. So she had a surgical entry into menopause versus
mhm.
just your hormones falling off a cliff on their own. So it was a
Yeah,
different experience. She's like, I can't help you. You're on your
right.
own,
And
sister.
it's that mystery that creates fear and or shame.
And fear can create shame, I think.
Yes. And vice versa, of course. And so for you, once you identified that all of these symptoms were interrelated and they were symptoms of menopause, what did you do?
I do what all women who value their core sisters, and I don't have a blood sister, but I have a lot of besties. And I'm like, hey, are anybody having this thing? Like, does anyone know what's going on here? And one of my dear friends is 5 years older, and she's like, that's just menopause. I'm like, what? It is? Okay. Well, how does that work? And so she shared her experience. And then I'm a very curious person. So then it was just sort of on after that. But she did not want to talk. She didn't want to say menopause. She didn't really want to talk about it, but she was willing to share her experience. But she just wanted to move on from it. And so then I just started asking all my friends, hey, are you having this? What's happening with you? And then slowly it came to the surface. I'm not very shy about saying what's going on, what's happening here.
Yeah.
There's Curious George, I'm Curious Julie. So I love information. I'm obsessed now with AI because it's like a whole nother level of information. My curiosity makes me a learner. And so when I started feeling menopausal, perimenopausal, which I didn't know I was perimenopausal because I didn't learn that word until 2 years ago. This is the newest old conversation ever. This is very old experience, but it's all new to most of us to discuss it in this way.
What were the big surprises for you when you started doing all of this research?
How long it can last. And
Huh?
for me, my journey was 10 years. Like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Now we're actually claiming over 60 symptoms and beyond. There's so many things that happen to our bodies when our estrogen declines, and our other hormones also, but we talk about estrogen the most. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. But things like frozen shoulder, like who knew that was associated, or joint pain, or burning mouth. Like what? These things that
I've heard about the frozen shoulder, burning mouth. That sounds miserable.
burning mouth, it's a sensation that some women get where it feels like you're chewing on a hot pepper. You have a hot pepper in your mouth all the time, all the time.
That sounds
It's
horrible.
terrible.
And
Yes,
so
it's
as you
terrible.
were doing all of this research, like part of me wants to say like, let's go get the research. Let's destigmatize. Let's acknowledge that this is a part of our existence. And the other part of me is like, now I'm kind of dreading it because it's not just this one like mega symptom that I knew about. It's all these other things.
Yeah. The positive is that this is the most empowering time of our lives. Yes, the symptoms, the experience is a little tricky, but the reality is we are more confident because we have more experience. We've lived longer. We know more. In most cases, we have the highest income we've ever made. We are in leadership positions. We make all the buying decisions. So it's actually an amazing time. And for many of us, our kids are moving towards up and out, or they're out, and we get our time back. We can do things like start a new business, learn something new, just reinvent ourselves, or get connected to that little dream, whatever that might be, that you put aside, that was a secret, or you quieted because there was no time. This is the time. And so we can work not as
Mm,
hard in the same way that we did before. We can work smarter because of all those tools we're bringing to the new party. So I think it's amazing. I actually love it. I love it in
yeah.
spite of all years of all kinds of things.
The thing that keeps coming up for me in these conversations is that accepting it as change. And because it is a change in so many aspects of our lives and bodies, certainly. And change is not bad. Change is just different. So for you, though, I get the feeling based on the way you described yourself in the beginning that you're somebody who was probably praised a lot in your life for your quick wit, your quick thinking, your super smarts. And so when you got brain fog and things started to slow down for you, like cognitively, maybe those synapses were firing a little more slowly. You were forgetting some things. Like, did you learn to rely on different strengths through that? How did you make peace with that when it was so much a part of what I assume was your identity?
Right. It's my identity. Exactly. Especially, I'm trying to navigate financial statements because of the company that I had at the time. It was scary, but it also helped me develop resourcefulness, tap into resilience. So I know that hard things always make us better if we're willing to find that silver lining, if you will. And so in those challenges, it really helped me cultivate a stronger sense of self, a stronger identity outside of whatever, I was applauded for as a kid, or the business that I had. It was more like, who am I? And how do I dig deep? Do I really believe? Is this thing important to me? And if it is, how do I figure it out? Because I know I can figure it out. What do I need? Who do I need to surround myself? Who do I need to serve in order to find the thing that I need? So in the scariness of it, I built more resilience and more resourcefulness. So you have to be willing to sit in that discomfort and look for the positives. That's why I coached women entrepreneurs for 10 years before I started this company. And in order to do something that feels outside of the norm, kind of like starting a business, although we act like starting a business is just what everybody does, but not everybody does it, because you're out there on your own and you take the good and you take the hard and the bad. And so teaching women to go inside that well that we actually all have, to connect with who you really are, who you know yourself to be, and to trust her to be resilient, to trust her to figure it out, to trust her to make a different decision, and to trust her if she guides you that this isn't the thing, and be okay with it.
Mm.
So that's what comes from getting to a place in our lives where we are changing, where we are going through a transition. There's so much beauty and gold there if we are willing to sit with it and in it, in the discomfort of it. It's actually so spectacular.
As you were talking, what I began to imagine was that your intelligence, perhaps in first half of life, was rooted in your brain, and now your intelligence is more rooted in your gut.
And heart.
Interesting, right? And heart, yeah, those instinctual places. Interesting too, though, because as you said that, as you corrected it to heart, you already made a gut-heart connection between, like, physical gain in the middle, but it's like you were also gaining in the middle in terms of your core strengths, both in the heart and the gut.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a wonderful coach, Marshall Goldsmith, who said, "What got you here won't get you there." And to me, that's what midlife is about. That's why when we hear people are having men are having a midlife crisis, women don't really have a crisis, but we do go through a thing like, who am I now? Now that I'm 40 or 50 or 60, I'm going to be 60 soon. And it's a great time to reflect, who am I now? And what got me here won't get me there. And that's okay.
Mhm.
But when we go, we trust ourselves, when we can believe in something bigger, have a bigger pool of resources to tap into, then we can kind of do anything.
Yeah. So it's like that head focus is pretty individual. And then once you're centered in the middle, the gut and the heart, then I already heard you talk about, like, calling in other resources and sources of support, and whether they be other human beings or AI tools or the universe, it is
Right.
surrounding yourself with the resources that you need to enable you to be of highest best purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Being resourceful, because we might not always have
Mhm.
resources, but we do always have the ability to be resourceful. And
Mm,
then
that's
there's a
good.
distinction. There's a
Yes,
distinction.
that's good. I've
Mhm.
never heard
And
anybody say that
then
that way.
And then I always say you have to leave a little room for the universe. Because you never know what
Mm,
can happen, because right when you
for
think,
the
oh, this thing is
magic.
going south, right,
Yeah.
you're always 3 feet from something amazing. So just leave a little space for that.
I see why Denise described you as seeing the positive in any outcome. I feel like you
It's
you do that in everything that you say. It's looking at things sort of pragmatically and realistically and not sugarcoating, but also seeing the possibilities that exist within what is instead of trying to change it
Yes,
into something else.
I love the way you frame that, because everything is possible. When I thought about a MenoWell bar, a menopause bar, it didn't exist. It was just an idea that is now a thing, physical thing. And that we have a lot of representation. Just look around our office, your microphone, somebody thought of that microphone and now it's a thing. So we all have the ability to have an idea and it becomes a thing. It doesn't always have to
Mm,
be tangible, but that is a definition of possibility. So I think it's really juicy to play in the space of infinite possibility.
yes. I just started Rick Rubin's book yesterday, so I'm not very
Mm,
far in it. But the opening page is acknowledging that we are all creators, right?
absolutely.
And that every time we make a choice, we become a creator because we're looking for possibilities, as you said. But this idea that these things that now feel essential, whether they be a microphone or a pair of headphones or an iPhone or Amazon, um, they were somebody's brainchild. We all have the potential to create something that seems as if it was always there.
That's the fun, that's where creativity comes in. It can come in from baking. Like I was actually like my daughter thought I was the worst because I didn't like to craft. I don't like crafting. I'm not a good crafter, but I'm creative in business. I had shame about that actually. Now that I'm going to confess, I had shame that I did not want to craft. I forced myself to craft. I hated it.
Here's to
Shame.
destigmatizing hating crafting. I
You
mean,
just found my shame. I hated craft. I'm
isn't that
ashamed that I didn't want to craft with my beautiful daughter.
I was ashamed I didn't wanna play Barbies. I hated it,
Right.
and all they wanted to
I
do was
just
play
cut all their
Barbies, and I
hair
was like,
off all
"This
the
is
time.
so boring." Yeah. I was like, "Can we clean maybe?" It sounds purposeful.
You're purposefully driven. I love
They
that.
didn't wanna do that though. They wanted to play Barbies, so I had another child to play Barbies with her. I was like, "Here, I'm gonna hire for this." So,
Right.
talk to me about the MenoWell bar. So that was an invention. Were you always a cook? And it
I don't really
came
like
out
to
of your
cook
own
either.
so how did
You're
you end up
finding all
making
my
your
shame
own
that I
bar?
don't think I have. No, I can
And yet,
cook. I
like,
just
you
don't enjoy
created
it.
how
Bar's
did the
not
bar
cooking. It's not cooking.
I
I
mean,
invented the formula. I gathered the ingredients. I put it together. It did not taste good. I had to keep working on it because I wanted something that would solve my sugar cravings because I like sweets a lot. And that was not working for me. And so I had to find something that helped. But then my curious nature said, how do I take this thing that's just there to help me manage sweets and actually find a formula that could help me in my menopause, that could help me because my mom told me hormone replacement was not an option for us. I actually am on hormone replacement now, but that was a recent new thing. So I went through my entire menopause transition without hormone replacement. So I was looking for a non-hormonal solution to calm my body, to help me manage sugar cravings, help me lessen my hot flashes. So I went the nutrition and food route. And that's why I created something related to that.
and was that just the result of all of your own research initially?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Curious Julie strikes again.
Uh-huh. That's pretty remarkable. And when did you start to think, "Maybe this is a business?"
Yeah, that was in July of 2020, right in COVID. Too much time on my hands. I can get in trouble with too much time on my hands. A business usually comes out of it. And so I started really thinking about it and doing the research and playing and prototyping and things like that. I told my girlfriends, and half of them said, that sounds amazing, but don't call it anything related to menopause. Even if it helps women, if you designed it for women in menopause, we don't want it. Like, ugh, menopause. Don't say that. Like, challenge accepted. That's why we're going to go down that route. And so they liked the little thing I was making. And so then I collected another friend who was a clinical nutritionist and another friend who's an OBGYN who happened to specialize in menopause, which I didn't know till later, to validate, does this make sense? Do you agree? And I got the thumbs up. So that was it. All right, what do we do? Let's figure this out. How do we commercialize this little thing I was making?
Interesting. And did you feel like what drew you personally toward leading a company like this?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur. This is my
Mhm.
third company. But my other two companies, I coach women entrepreneurs, as I said, for 10 years. And then 10 years before that, I had a boutique mergers and acquisitions firm. So I sold companies. So I'm very comfortable in an entrepreneurial role. And I always told my coaching clients, don't start a product business. It requires too much capital and the margins are too small. And so at 55, I started the company that I told them not to do. Glutton for punishment. But I was just so passionate about the product and helping women in menopause. The majority of what I do is talk to women, educate women, and listen. Just
Mhm.
listen to them because no one is listening. Their doctors aren't listening. Maybe their mothers aren't listening. Their girlfriends or their sisters might not be listening. So I spend as much time on awareness and production as I do talking and listening to women because I want them to feel seen and heard and validated on their journey.
A curious person, what are you discovering through these conversations that you feel like most people are probably asking but not getting answered?
Yeah. They don't understand what's happening to their bodies.
Hmm.
They don't know. Women still don't know. And their doctors don't know.
Mhm.
Or they know, but they're not talking about it. Doctors don't get enough education in this space because they're educated on having babies and other gynecological topics, but not menopause. And because there was a study years back that hormone replacement wasn't good, the type of hormone replacement that they were giving, and also the group that they studied, doctors were afraid of hormone replacement. So the whole conversation went to the wayside. So now we have this whole generation of doctors that are not educated and fearful. That it just sets women up for a terrible experience. So where do they go? That's why Instagram is, and TikTok are the places where women are flocking to get information, flocking to talk to the top docs, flocking to the M Factor film to understand what's happening with their body. Even yesterday, I was having like a little heart palpitation, which even postmenopause can happen. And because I take hormone replacement and I started it closer to the end of my 10-year window, which now even they're saying might not even be a thing, I went to the doctor because it's a heart thing. I better go. And I asked for an EKG and a cardiac scan. And my OBGYN, actually my general practitioner, I should say, female, menopausal age, she said, well, I don't know why you need that because I'm very postmenopausal. And this is when I started. And I had to send her some information from a book from Dr. Mary Claire Haver, who I love, one of my besties in this space,
She's amazing. Yeah.
isn't she?
Amazing.
About what happens in postmenopause and why we need to pay attention to heart related, cardiac related things. My doctor's wonderful, but she did not receive the education. So this is why women are still talking about it, why they're flocking to Instagram and everybody is upset. Like we shouldn't be educating women about menopause on Instagram, but there's no other place for them to go at all.
One of one of my day jobs is that I coach founders and thought leadership platforms. And so I help them build up their thought leadership. And one of the women I'm coaching right now, really extraordinary medical doctor who became a financial advisor because nobody was talking about the intersection between financial concerns and menopause. And so there were all these
Wow.
intersections, right? She was like, there are
I
huge
love it.
opportunities here and there are huge hazards, and our brains are working in different ways. And so we're thinking about money differently, but we're not responding effectively. And so she's really got, I think, such an important niche. But none of this is talked about, and we don't have anywhere to go for any of this. And so, as you said, we're going to firsthand
Social
experience, which
media.
is valuable. And what we need is consolidated firsthand experience in most cases so that we don't
Yeah.
end up with kind of alarmist thinking, right?
Yes, it's very fragmented, but it's starting to come together. There are some buckets of resources at the Menopause Society and Let's Talk Menopause.org, following Dr. Mary Claire Haver, Dr. Sharon Malone, very trusted sources of information. But yeah, it's still so early. It's wild. It's wild. Women have been going through this transition since the beginning of time.
Yes.
And now we're just
Yes.
talking about
And I mean, our worlds were much smaller
it.
200
Yeah,
years ago. And
right.
so
We
I'm
didn't have
sure
the
these things were
internet.
handed. That's right. They were handed down effectively, woman to woman within the village, whatever that might have been. And
Yeah,
we were guided through these transitions by our elders. But now that society has become so fractured, we have had this big bucket where in most of our transformative experiences, we have either had to self-guide and feel really lost or find
right.
companies to hire to help us through these transitions. but
Yeah.
these companies just didn't exist for a very large window of time. And it does feel like a renewed frontier.
The conversation is old, but the
Mm,
resources, the services, the products are new. They really are.
yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. What are your hopes for this segment? I don't want to say industry because somehow that just like that makes it just commercial, but it's so purpose based. What are your hopes though for this segment in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I hope that this conversation becomes fully mainstream, which anytime we have a commercial about menopause during the Super Bowl, that is a good step. We have commercials around the news all the time about menopause products. So we are on our way. So it's a combination of doctors getting up to speed, getting the education that they need so women can feel served, basically taken care of by their existing provider, or just have more access to services like MIDI and Alloy and Evernow, where women can get the care that they need. But I would just probably think a little bit farther out that my 26-year-old daughter, that when it's
Mm,
time for her to go through menopause, she'll be ready. She won't even think about it in 20 years when she has her first brain meltdown or hot flash. She's like, I got this. I got this.
yeah.
And
And
my
my
sons
doctor's got
too.
this too.
And
Yeah.
my doctor's ready. I already know I'm good. Just like anything else, it will be no different than having a baby or any other gynecological process that a woman goes through. It's just like, this is next. We won't even need all this conversation. That's my hope.
One of the things I love to ask women, especially women like you who are in your second chapter or maybe third, fourth, fifth chapter, I don't know. And you are redefining how you are in the world. What takes courage for you these days?
I'm raising money,
Mhm.
and I've always self funded my companies, and I self funded the start of this. But going back to what I said about a consumer packaged goods business requires
Take
a
a
lot
lot
of
of capital.
capital.
Yeah.
That requires going out of my comfort zone and asking or sharing the investment,
Mm,
raising capital. But I have to do it because I believe so deeply in the mission that why wouldn't I invite people to invest in the company? The right people. Let's be clear. All money is not good money. And I've passed on good money. Well, it looked good, but it wasn't good. So feeling confident in that, but also knowing that raising capital is a big part of my job as a CEO of a CPG company. So
yeah.
that's what I've had to step into, that resilience, that courage, and keep on going because it's not always a yes.
Yeah. Tell me about the mindset that you have learned to employ in the face of both asking and hearing no.
On the asking side, I know that my company is a great investment. So, if anything, I feel that I am doing a disservice if I don't invite the right investor to invest, because I don't want them to be mad when they missed out on a big opportunity. And if they say no, it was hard at first. I am not going to tell you that I was like, oh, great, they said no. It's like, what? Are you kidding? Do you not know how hard I work? The number of women in this space who need support, that was my initial, but that's not my higher self. Getting back grounded into that whole mind body heart connection we were talking about. It's not a right fit for them, therefore it's not a right fit for me, and it's not a right fit at this time. And there's plenty of the right fits. My work is to just find myself in front of the right fits. So keep going.
I love that. And what a perfect parallel for how we most healthfully consider the menopause transition as a whole. What is the right fit for right
Mm,
now?
mm,
And
yeah.
as I say perhaps too often, what is this moment perfect for? And
Ooh, I love that.
right, I feel like
Mm,
everything becomes easier when we detach from what do I want this to be? And instead open to what is this perfect for? And I think with menopause, that's really the question I'm continuously coming back to for myself. But I think it's so true too, to asking for and finding the right partnerships for the projects that we believe in, be they writing a book or starting a company.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. That's the space that I talk about, right? Leaving that space because you don't know.
Yeah.
We have an idea. That's how we move through the world. We have an idea, but you have to leave space and be open to
Mm,
what it might be perfect for at this time, which you may or may not know.
that's right. And we get to discover that. I'm so glad I got to meet you, Julie. Thank you so much
Same.
for taking time out to share your experience. I can't wait to try the MenoWell bars. Thank you for sending them to me. I'll be sure to share them with other perimenopause and menopausal women so we can all enjoy them together. And I'm
Thank you.
so grateful for you and the Meno sisters out there who are paving the way for the rest of us so that I and your daughter and my daughters can have an easier road of it. And instead of hiding this, opening the door for us. So thank you.
That's the big payoff, isn't it?
Thanks for watching the Uplifters podcast. If this inspired you, hit subscribe and tap the bell to stay uplifted. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little lift today. Big love.
Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwell in the perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree in springtime.